Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is episode 44. And today we're digging into a question that comes straight from a listener, Edward from Indianapolis. So Edward, this one's for you.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one.
This whole season 4, we're calling it the retirement blueprint, mastering IRAs, 401ks, and more. And it's all about, cutting through the noise on planning for the future.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here with our expert, and as always, Edward, this deep dive is produced by Katie St. Ors. She's a certified financial planner and a tax strategist.
And the question Edward posed is one a lot of people dream about, I think.
Absolutely. Can you actually retire early, like really early, relying solely on your 401k?
Just the 401k, nothing else.
Exactly.
Let's define early retirement first. We're not talking maybe 62 instead of 65.
No, we mean significantly earlier, like your 50s, maybe even late 40s for some ambitious folks.
It's a huge chunk of time, potentially. And it's very different from, say, a phased retirement where you just cut back hours.
Right. And the interesting thing is the 401k itself wasn't really built for this, was it?
Not at all. I mean, its core design was always meant to work alongside other savings, maybe a pension back in the day, and definitely Social Security.
For retirement around, 65, 67, somewhere in that traditional range?
Exactly. So the idea of using only the 401k to fund, 30, 40, maybe even 50 years of retirement starting super early, that's stretching it way beyond its original purpose.
It just sounds incredibly difficult. Like you're setting yourself up for a path with a lot of built-in limits and, frankly, risks.
Yeah, think about the structure. Penalties if you touch it before 59 and a half. Often, you don't have a huge range of investment choices inside the plan.
It's just not set up to be your sole income source for decades, starting, say, at age 50.
And to pull it off, you'd need, almost everything to go right. We're talking extraordinary savings levels, like way beyond normal.
Plus consistently good market returns over a very long period.
Meticulous planning, down to the last detail. And you'd need to understand all the intricate rules inside and out.
It's kind of ironic, isn't it? The things that make 401k good for traditional retirement, the tax breaks, the employer match, they almost work against you if you need that money much, much sooner.
Right. Those early withdrawal penalties are the big flashing sign saying, hey, we didn't really design this for withdrawals in your 50s.
Okay, so if someone hears this and still thinks, maybe? Where does that journey even start? What's the absolute first step?
It has to be extreme saving. There's just no way around it.
Like, forget the standard advice of saving 15%.
Oh, absolutely. Forget it for this scenario. We're talking savings rates mirroring the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early. Think 50%, 60%, even 75% or more of your income.
Wow, that's a huge commitment.
It's non-negotiable, really. The math just doesn't work otherwise. You've got a shorter time to save up the money.
And a much longer time that money needs to last you in retirement.
Precisely. And if the 401k is all you have, it has to carry the entire load. So the higher your savings rate, the shorter your working career could potentially be.
So if you're aiming for retirement in, say, 15 or 20 years, you might need to be socking away more than half your paycheck consistently.
Yeah, that means major lifestyle changes, serious frugality during what might be your peak earning years.
Trade in your boring job for a brilliant career using Adobe Creative Cloud. Start learning now with the free trial link in the description.
And obviously, job number one is maxing out those 401k contributions every single year. What's the limit for 2025?
For employee contributions, it's $23,500.
And capturing that full employer match is critical, right? That's like free money accelerating your growth.
Absolutely crucial. You cannot leave that on the table if you're trying this. But you also need to understand the vesting schedule for that match.
Right. When does that employer money actually become yours?
Exactly. Some plans use cliff vesting. You get 100% after, say, 3 years, but nothing before. Others use graded vesting, where you get it gradually, maybe 20% per year over 5 years.
So if you leave before you're fully vested,
you forfeit some or all of that employer contribution, though importantly, the money you put in is always yours, 100% vested immediately.
Okay. And what about catch-up contributions for people getting closer to retirement?
Good point. If you're 50 or older in 2025, you can put in an extra $7,500 on top of the $23,500.
And there's that newer Secure 2.0 Act rule?
Right. Starting 2025, if you're age 60, 61, 62, or 63, you might be able to contribute an even larger catch-up amount, an additional $11,250. But And this is key. Your specific plan has to allow for it.
Okay. And a heads up for higher earners.
Yes, another 2025 change. If you earned over $145,000 in the prior year, any catch-up contributions you make might have to go into a Roth 401k if your plan offers one. So that adds a tax consideration.
And their overall limits too, right? Combining your contributions and the employer's?
Correct. For 2025, if you're under 50, the total can't exceed the lesser of 100% of your pay, or $70,000.
And for older folks?
Ages 50, 59, or 64 and up, it's $77,500. And for those aged 60, 63, using that special catch-up, it's $81,250.
Some plans even allow after-tax non-Roth contributions on top of that.
It's less common, but yes, it's another way to potentially funnel even more money into the 401k structure if your plan allows it and you're aiming for maximum savings.
But this focus on maximizing contributions within the plan really brings up a potential vulnerability, doesn't it? Your whole strategy depends on having consistent access to a good 401k.
Exactly. It's entirely tied to your employment situation. And 401k plans are not created equal.
The match formula, the investment options, contribution types, they can vary wildly.
So if you lose your job or move to a company with a lousy plan, or maybe no plan at all, your savings momentum just hits a wall.
And yeah, you can roll over the old 401k, but you can't make up for lost matching contributions during gaps or if the new plan isn't as good.
It really highlights the fragility. Relying solely on that one employer-sponsored vehicle feels, well, riskier than diversifying across different account types like IRAs or taxable accounts.
Okay, let's assume you are managing to save aggressively in the 401k. What about investing that money? How does that need to look for an early finish line?
Well, the investment strategy have to be geared towards pretty significant growth, but you have less time to achieve it, so you're likely prioritizing growth assets.
Meaning a higher allocation to stocks or equities?
Generally, yes.
Yeah.
Historically, that's where the higher long-term returns have come from compared to bonds.
But that comes with more risk, more volatility.
Absolutely. And that volatility, especially right before or just after you retire early, brings in that sequence of return risk we mentioned. We'll circle back to that. It's a big one.
And costs. Keeping investment fees low must be paramount.
Oh, critical. Every little bit saved on fees compounds over time. You absolutely have to choose the lowest cost options available in your plan index funds, ETFs if they have them.
You should probably even compare the fees in a potential new employer's plan if you're thinking of changing jobs.
Definitely part of the due diligence. And then there's compounding. That's the magic, right? Your money, earning money.
But it needs fuel. Big, consistent contributions are what really get that compounding engine roaring, especially on a shorter timeline.
Small savings just won't cut it for early retirement targets. And you need the discipline to stick with the plan, ride out the market bumps, don't panic sell.
But one major constraint with 401k is that you don't get to pick any investment you want.
Exactly. Unlike an IRA or brokerage account, you're limited to the menu your employer provides.
So the perfect low-cost fund you want might not even be an option.
Right. You might be forced to choose something that's maybe second best or has slightly higher fees. That lack of control is a fundamental drawback of the 401k only approach.
Okay. So you've saved like crazy, invested for growth. Now the big moment. You're retiring early. How do you actually get the money out before age 59 and a half without getting hit by that 10% penalty?
Ah, the million-dollar question for the early retiree.
Yeah.
So the default is withdrawal before 59.5 means income tax plus a 10% federal penalty.
But there are exceptions.
Yes, the IRS provides a few ways around the penalty part. Two are key here. First up is the Rule of 55.
Rule of 55, what's the deal with that one?
Basically, if you leave your job, quit, get laid off, retire in the calendar year you turn 55, or any year after that,
Okay.
you can take penalty-free withdrawals from that specific employer's 401k. And for certain public safety workers, like police and firefighters, the age is 50, not 55.
That sounds potentially very useful, but I sense a but coming.
Oh, there are several buts. Big ones. First, the timing is strict. Leave at 54, even if you turn 55 later that year, you don't qualify from that separation.
Got it. Has to be in or after the year you turn 55 or 50.
Second, it only applies to the 401k of the employer you just left. Money in old 401ks or IRAs. Still subject to the penalty.
Wow, okay, so you can't consolidate and then use it.
Not for this rule.
Trade in your boring job for a brilliant career using Adobe Creative Cloud. Start learning now with the free trial link in the description.
Third, the money must stay in that specific 401k plan. If you roll it over to an IRA, you lose the Rule of 55 access for those funds.
That seems like a huge limitation.
It is. Fourth, The plan itself has to allow Rule of 55 distributions. They aren't required to. Some might, but maybe only as a lump sum, which could be a tax nightmare.
And fifth,
Fifth, even without the penalty, you still pay ordinary income tax on every dollar you withdraw, and expect 20% federal tax withholding if you take a direct payment.
so that limitation to only the last employer's plan,
Yeah.
that could strand a lot of money you were counting on until you actually hit 59.5?
It's a major potential roadblock.
Okay.
Okay, the second main penalty exception is using substantially equal periodic payments, SEPP, or sometimes called 72 payments, after the IRS code section.
SCP-72T sounds technical.
It is pretty technical and very rigid. It lets you take penalty-free withdrawals at any age, before 55 even.
Oh.
You have to set up a schedule of payments based on IRS-approved calculation methods, and critically, once you start, you must continue taking these payments for at least 5 full years, or until you reach age 59.5, whichever period is longer.
5 years or 59.5, whichever is longer. No stopping early.
Generally, no stopping, no changing the amount, nothing. Break the rules, and the 10% penalty usually gets applied retroactively to all the payments you received before 59.5, plus interest. It's incredibly inflexible.
How are the payment amounts figured out?
There are 3 main ways the IRS allows. An RMD method, which usually gives the lowest payment and recalculates yearly. A fixed amortization method, giving a higher fixed payment, and a fixed annuitization method, usually somewhere in between.
And there are rules about interest rates used in those fixed calculations.
Yes, there's a cap based on federal rates, or 5%.
Yeah.
And like the Rule of 55, these SEP payments avoid the penalty, but they are fully taxable as ordinary income.
That inflexibility sounds terrifying. What if your needs change? You need more money or less, or you go back to work?
Tough luck, basically. You're locked in. That's the massive risk with SEP. Your life circumstances might change, but the payment schedule generally can't. It makes it a very brittle strategy for funding potentially decades of retirement.
Okay, so even if you successfully use the Rule of 55 or SEPP to get money out penalty-free, you're still facing major challenges in early retirement itself, right?
Oh, absolutely. Getting the money out is just step one. First, taxes. As we said, every dollar from a traditional 401k is taxed. That eats into your spending power.
And could push you into a higher tax bracket than you planned for, plus that 20% withholding.
Right. Then comes the big one, healthcare.
Before Medicare at 65, this seems like the giant unknown for many early retirees.
It's arguably the single biggest financial hurdle. You lose employer coverage. COBRA is temporary and expensive. The ACA marketplace. Well, premiums can be high, especially for older folks. And subsidies depend heavily on your income.
And that's where the 401k only strategy creates a potential trap, isn't it, with the ACA subsidies?
Exactly. It can be a nasty feedback loop. You take taxable withdrawals from your traditional 401k to live on,
That increases your income, your MAGI.
which reduces or eliminates your ACA premium subsidies,
So your insurance costs go up, forcing you to withdraw more taxable money.
which raises your income again. It really highlights the disadvantage compared to having tax-free income sources like Roth accounts or using an HSA for medical costs.
Okay, let's talk about that sequence of return risk again. Why is it so dangerous here?
So imagine you retire early, and right away, the market tanks. You still need to withdraw money to live on.
So you're selling your investments when their prices are low.
Exactly. You have to sell more shares to get the same amount of cash. This depletes your principal much faster, leaving you with less capital to recover when the market eventually bounces back.
And if your 401k is your only pot of money,
You have no choice but to sell low. You can't draw from a cash cushion or bonds held elsewhere. It dramatically increases the risk of running out of money later,
which ties right into longevity risk, the risk of outliving your savings.
which is already higher for early retirees because retirement lasts longer. A 30 or 40-year retirement needs a bigger nest egg and probably a lower withdrawal rate than the old 4% rule assumed.
Bad returns early on, SRR, make it much harder to make the money last for that long time, longevity risk.
They compound each other, especially in this 401k only scenario where you lack flexibility.
And we can't forget the plan limitations themselves.
Right. We touched on this. Investment choices might be poor or expensive. Withdrawal rules differ. Maybe no Rule of 55, maybe no SPP allowed, maybe 401k loans aren't offered, or have tricky repayment rules if you leave the job. It all adds layers of uncertainty.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Traditional versus Roth 401k. How does that choice play into this early retirement equation?
It's a huge factor. Quick recap. Traditional means pre-tax contributions, tax-deferred growth, but taxable withdrawals.
Roth means after-tax contributions, tax-free growth, and tax-free qualified withdrawals later.
The classic dilemma is, Will your tax rate be higher now or in retirement? But predicting that is, well, difficult.
So having both, if possible, gives you tax diversification, flexibility later.
That's the idea. You can choose which bucket to pull from in retirement to manage your taxable income. Though remember, the employer match always goes into the traditional side.
For an early retiree, what are the specific pros and cons of focusing on Roth?
The big pro is obvious. Tax-free income in retirement is incredibly appealing, especially for a potentially long retirement. And Roth withdrawals don't boost your MGI, which helps with those ACA subsidies.
Sounds great, but what's the catch?
The catch is making those contributions. Since they're after tax, contributing, say, $20,000 to a Roth takes a bigger bite out of your current paycheck than contributing $20,000 pre-tax to a traditional.
Making those extreme savings rates even harder to hit.
Exactly. Funding an early retirement solely with Roth 401k contributions is exceptionally demanding from a cash flow perspective during your working years.
What about Roth conversions? Can they help bridge the gap?
They can be a powerful tool. You convert money from a traditional 401k or IRA to a Roth IRA, paying income tax on the converted amount that year.
And then you can access the converted amount tax and penalty-free later.
After a 5-year waiting period for each conversion amount, people build Roth conversion ladders, doing a chunk each year in early retirement when their income might be lower, creating a pipeline of tax-free funds becoming available 5 years down the road. Some 401ks even allow in-plan conversions now.
So, Edward, listening to all this, it feels like retiring early just on a 401k. It's a really, really high bar.
It's incredibly ambitious. The discipline needed for saving and investing is immense. But equally important is navigating all these complex rules, the access issues, the healthcare costs.
Yeah. The dream is powerful, but the practical hurdles, taxes, healthcare costs before Medicare, market risk hitting you at the wrong time, they are significant.
It seems clear that while maybe, just maybe, possible for a very few and perfect circumstances, relying only on the 401k really magnifies the risks and limits your options compared to a more diversified approach.
This deep dive really hammers home the value of using multiple tools, IRAs, taxable accounts, maybe HSAs, to build a more robust and flexible plan if early retirement is your goal.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.
See you later.
Okay, great. That's a wrap. I'm Katie St. Ors, and let me send out a huge thank you for listening. If you want more content on personal finance and small business, head over and find me on YouTube. You can also find me on Spotify, Amazon Music, TikTok, and Apple iTunes. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next Deep Dive podcast.